regroup, get their act together, because they got Houston, a team that, by the way, is in desperation mode. They're in a division that's so bad that they have a chance at winning. So believe me, Houston has a lot to play for in terms of the AFC South, but the Jets have a lot to play for in terms of being in that four-way race for those 2 wild card spots in the AFC. They better get their act together. And Fitzpatrick, by the way, was a quarterback last year for the Texans,
and he didn't really do that much with the Texans either.
Actually, he had a career year last year with the Texans before that injury that took him out for the last 6 weeks. And then, that's why the Jets made the trade for him to be the backup as opposed to having another Michael Vick or somebody else that would have screwed up behind Geno Smith.
Do not let the Texans and their spot in the division fool you. The Texans are horrible. They have no quarterback. Their best running back is gone for the year. The defense right now is trying all they can to keep them afloat. But when you compare those two teams, the Jets are better, plain and simple. If the Jets lose that Houston game, they don't deserve to be a playoff team. And right now, the Jets and Bills are tied for the last 2 spots in the playoff picture.
Unbelievable. Okay, now to Week 10. The teams that are on the bye. Atlanta Falcons, no more questionable decisions. Dan Quinn on 4th and goal. Indianapolis.
Do not let the fact that they're in first place fool you. The Colts are a disappointment, a begracious disappointment this season. As for San Diego,
ouch.
What has happened to Phillip Rivers?
It's not even. It's the some of his players being hurt too. Losing a guy like Ladarius Green, who was the 3rd fastest to 68 receptions in the amount of weeks that he played. Losing a guy like that to make those kind of contributions, huge right there. Their running game, though, Melvin Gordon has been an utter disappointment in his rookie year. This guy needs to step it up. They spent a 1st-round pick on him. Show us why. San Francisco, lucky you got that victory against Atlanta because of that foolish Dan Quinn decision. But other than that, Blaine Gabbert, get your act together for the weeks to come. We already talked about the Bills and the Jets. How about the upcoming game at the Meadowlands? Super Bowl 42 and 46 rematch. Patriots visiting the Giants. Giants, of course, winning both those Super Bowls. In fact,
and also one regular season game in between. So when you think about it, the Giants have won their last 3 meetings with the Patriots.
Coughlin's 5-1 against Belichick, lifetime.
And these are 2 guys who are destined for the Hall of Fame. Bill Belichick, of course, is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Coughlin's going to be a Hall of Famer in his own right down the road. But in this game, the Giants are extremely crippled by injuries. Jonathan Hankins is out for the season, just as Jason Pierre-Paul makes his way back from injury. Larry Donnell, we don't know when he's going to be returning. There's also the issue of Victor Cruz. He just got cleared for some exercises for this week. He's done a little bit of running. He may not make it for this weekend. There's still a chance he might make it for the following weekend. Actually, 2 weekends from now, because next week the Giants have a bye. But in this game, bottom line is the Giants really have to take advantage of every single opportunity that's presented to them and don't make mistakes. No turnovers, no stupid penalties, none of that. That is the Giants' best chance to win this game. As far as who wins this game, it's Patriots here.
Oh, you got the number 1 point-scoring offense, 34.5. The number 1 team on 3rd down conversions, 48.5%. And on top of that, 22 touchdown passes from Tom Brady. Granted, yes, Eli Manning has won 2 Super Bowls. He has those 2 MVPs. The last time that New England was undefeated at the Meadowlands, end of 2007, the Patriots won that game. Ended up losing, of course, Super Bowl 42 to the Giants. Mm-hmm. I don't foresee that happening this time. Patriots, take this.
When you think about it, Eli has actually played very well this season. The reason why is because he's actually taken better care of the football this year. But let's see what happens this coming Sunday.
Now we got to go through all the games. Here we go. The Arizona Cardinals, Seattle Seahawks, Sunday night football. This is going to be an amazing NFC West rivalry matchup.
Yeah, the NFC West is definitely going to be on the line, not just in this game, but I would assume in another game that they might have at the end of the year. As far as who takes this one, it's basically a matter of which quarterback is going to make the biggest play in this one and also whose defense is really going to shine. Arizona has Not been as good this year like they were last year when the defense really, really carried them. Seattle has really improved by leaps and bounds the last several weeks. I'm going to pick Seattle in this one. I just think that they're better, especially at quarterback.
The last time they were at CenturyLink, they lost 27-23 to Carolina. I think this time it's going to be yet another loss for them. I'm going with Carson Palmer and his 22 touchdowns, and I'm going with Chris Johnson, who's had 4 100-yard games in the last 6 to defeat that Seattle Seahawks defense. Now you got the Chiefs coming off the bye week, and before that they beat Detroit 45-10 London against the Denver Broncos, coming off a 3-point loss.
This has Broncos written all over it. You think they're going to want to take out their anger on someone after losing their first game of the year? It's going to be the Chiefs that becomes the sacrificial lamb in this one. I like Denver all the way here.
I actually am going opposite. I like the Chiefs. Let's not forget the last time they played, Thursday Night Football. Remember, Jamal Charles fumbled the ball. Bradley Roby picked the ball up, had to go in for the game-winning touchdown. All Kansas City had to do was kneel the ball in that game. They would have went to overtime.
And what's going to happen this time? Jamal Charles. Didn't Jamal Charles suffer a season-ending injury earlier?
Yep, he did, but you know what? Sharkandrick West has actually been a very good replacement for him. I think he's going to have a good game. They're not going to make the same kind of mistakes, and I think the defense is really going to take it to the Kansas City Chiefs defense is going to take it to Peyton Manning, who's got 9 touchdowns to 13 picks. Worst stats I've ever seen, but history could be on his side. Who knows? But I'm still going with the Chiefs to derail one part of history. Now you got the Vikings facing the Raiders, the Purple People Eaters versus the Black and Silver.
When you think about it, these two teams are kind of mirror images of each other. Each has a second-year quarterback, and each has a much improved defense. So when you think about it, this has the makings of maybe a low-scoring game, maybe 10-6, 14-10, somewhere in that area. As far as who wins this game, I don't think Oakland has seen a guy like Adrian Peterson before. They're really going to have to game plan against him in order to stop that Viking offense.
In the last 3 weeks, he's averaged 108 yards on the ground. He is going to be very tough for that Raiders defense to stop. I'm going with the Purple People Eaters. Give me the Vikings. And now, Monday night, the undefeated Bengals being visited by the Houston Texans. Houston native Andy Red Dalton.
Mm-hmm. You think he's not going to have a happy homecoming in this one? You know he's going to want to impress his family and friends in Houston. But when you think about it, the Bengals are just better. Andy Dalton has improved so much this season, and he's got a really good running game and a great plethora of receivers to work with.
Well, when you think about it, 47 years this team has been in existence in Cincinnati. They've never had, they could have their best start in that history if they win this game. And on top of that, you say the receivers, like A.J. Green gets double-teamed, but then you got Mohamed Sanu to worry about. Then you got Tyler Eifert, who leads all tight ends with 9 touchdowns, and an improved defense, too. They got all the pieces in place and great running backs. Yeah, I'm going with the Queen City Bengals to take this one. Now, the Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, NFC North rivalry matchup right here. The
Packers 1-7. Correction. The Lions are 1-7. I think 1-8 so far. The Packers reeling after 2 straight losses. Who do you think is going to take this one?
Yeah, the Lions haven't won at Lambeau in over 2 decades, 3 decades.
And get this. There are now rumors that Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson might be playing their last games as Detroit Lions. Ooh. Something tells me the Lions are going to be wanting to clean house by the time the season ends.
They've done so much cleaning. They already got rid of their offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi. They got rid of their 2 offensive line coaches. They just fired their team president and their general manager, all in the span of just in the last 3 weeks. They've gotten rid of so many people, and look where they are. They still haven't got anything other than that 38-35 victory in overtime against Chicago. So this team really is in a nosedive. They're dead last in rushing yards. They're dead
last, period.
They got the worst record in the NFL. They're primed for a number 1 pick. It doesn't matter what they do at this point. It's just they are a complete and utter mess. And I think Green Bay at home, they're 12-0. They're going to go 13-0. Aaron Rodgers rules them.
Yeah.
He owns Detroit.
Aaron Rodgers, I think the entire NFC East, the entire NFC North, going back to the NFC Central, going back to the black and blue division days, have had their fill of Detroit Lions meat in the past.
How did I know you were going to say something about lion meat? But believe you, yeah, they are fair game. Now the Dolphins and the Eagles in Broad Street. This is going to be some kind of matchup, that's for sure.
Another interesting matchup here. Two teams that are basically treading water right now. When you think about it, the Eagles could be slightly better because I think Sam Bradford has a little bit more polish as a quarterback than Ryan Tannehill does. Tannehill has not necessarily come up big in the biggest games. Bradford is coming off probably the single biggest win of his entire career, an overtime win against the Cowboys. Plus, the Eagles have the better running game with
DeMarco Murray.
With DeMarco Murray.
And Ryan Matthews.
And Ryan Matthews. Two guys who can explode for 100 yards at any time. I'm picking Philadelphia in this one.
You know what they've done the last 4 games, those two guys? 6 touchdowns, 620 yards. They're just unbelievable. I'm going with the Eagles. I'm sorry, I know I keep saying it, but I really like saying Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of the people in Philly do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way the Eagles will lose. Now, you got the Bears and the Rams. This is going to be a slobber-knocking defensive game, that's for sure.
Yeah, the Bears coming off a big win against San Diego. The Rams coming off a disappointing loss in overtime to the Vikings. This game is just so tough to figure out because you have two teams with sporadic play at quarterback.
But it's their running backs
the run. If these guys are smart, they'll keep the game on the ground. The Bears with Matt Forte.
Actually, he's not playing. It's Jeremy Langford.
Correction. Jeremy Langford, that is, because Forte is hurt. And the Rams with one Todd Gurley, who has suddenly found a miracle cure for his ailing knee and has become just a star for the Rams this season.
He had 4 straight games of 125 yards. Last week, of course, that was derailed against Minnesota, reduced to 89 yards. But still, the guy, he's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. As far as who wins this game, St. Louis is slightly better defensively. I like the Rams in this one.
I like the Rams, too. We finally have a same team. I love that, man.
Mm-hmm.
Got the Browns, Steelers, and an AFC North rivalry matchup in Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania. Let me tell you this, folks.
All Steelers all the time is all I can say. And Johnny Manziel will start at quarterback for the Browns. Not going to make much of a difference anyway.
Against Landry Jones.
Against Landry Jones, who I think if he is given a fair shake, can have a chance to be a decent enough backup for somebody. He showed that for the Steelers when he took over for Big Ben last weekend. And I think, given the chance here, I think he'll have a chance to shine. I like the Steelers in this one.
I like the Steelers, too. The way Antonio Brown played last week, that Browns defense is I think what they really have to worry about is Pittsburgh on the ground. DeAngelo Williams had over 100 yards replacing Le'Veon Bell last week. He's going to have his fill. Look for him to have 120 yards. They're the worst rushing offense in the defense in the league, Cleveland. Now, the next game right here, Titans. Actually, not Titans, Cow. It's Titans, Panthers. It's going to be, I like, not the Titans. I like the Panthers in this one.
Yep.
No way. That was a great victory they had last week. Don't get me wrong, last week against New Orleans. But I do not see them doing anything against the Carolina Panthers with Cam Newton's offensive prowess, with their quarterback Olsen and his ability to catch the ball at tight end. And you know what? I really like the running game of Jonathan Stewart and Mike Tolbert. And the defense, too, with Kuechly and Josh Norman and Thomas Davis. Like, they got everything going for them right.
Honestly, I see a trap game here. Carolina coming off such a big win over the Packers, and Tennessee coming off such a big win of their own against New Orleans. Marcus Mariota, somewhere down the line, Marcus Mariota is going to win a big game against a proven quarterback. Could this be the game? Not necessarily, but watch out. I think Tennessee's going to play a much better game than you give him credit for. Carolina wins a close one here.
You know, it's crazy. You got two Heisman Trophy quarterbacks going up against each other. That's really, interesting right there. Now, Dallas, they're going to Tampa Bay. Will Dallas finally end their 6-game losing skid in Tampa Bay, Florida? I think so. I think this time around, Matt Castle, he had probably his best performance, despite the fact that they did lose last week. He had a better performance against the Eagles than I've seen the other two starts he's had.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really gets his team over the hump. Him and Des Bryant are going to have a really great performance this week.
This is where the Cowboys really have to come up with a good game plan against Jameis Winston, a guy who's had a bad habit of committing some really stupid mistakes in the biggest spots. I also think this is the game where the Cowboys finally snap that losing streak. I like the Cowboys, even in spite of their quarterback play, to beat the Buccaneers with the rookie quarterback.
Saints, Redskins. Really not much to think about here.
This is a really tough game to predict because on paper you think the Saints are the better team, but the Redskins have been so unpredictable this season. They've lost a couple of games that they should have won, and they've won a couple of games that they should have lost. Technically, this is a game they should lose because the Saints are better.
Well, the Redskins, what's crazy about them? They only have one loss at home and 3 wins. 3-1 at home, and yet on the road.
All the more reason why you have to be really, really careful with this game.
Yeah, but in the end, I think the Saints will improve from what they did last week. I think when they get a lead, and I think they will in this game with Mark Ingram, and they won't get picked off like Drew Brees did last week on that pass to Mark Ingram that really changed the game against Tennessee, I really believe the Saints are going to take one up on Kirk Cousins and the rest of that squad. I
have an upset special for you. The Saints' defense is abysmal. I think Washington wins this one.
All right.
I think they take advantage of that putrid Saints defense, even if Kirk Cousins is going to be the quarterback.
The last game of the week to discuss, the Jacksonville Jaguars visiting the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens coming off their bye, off that 29-26 victory November 1st against San Diego, while the Jacksonville Jaguars, of course, lost to the Jets 28-23 on those 2 gifts they gave to the Jets, the interception and the fumble.
That's a cover your eyes and point game, as I like to call it. So the finger points is closest to the Jaguars. I want a mulligan.
Okay.
You know what? Let's just say Jaguars just for the hell of it.
You know what? I'm going with the Jaguars too, actually. The fact is they could have defeated the Jets last week. They really could have with the way they played. But if it wasn't for that fumble, if it wasn't for that bad interception from Bortles, Jaguars would have had this. And you know what? The Ravens, good that they got that victory against San Diego weeks ago. But you know what? The defense, ever since their leader, Terrell Suggs, went down the first week against Denver, they've been pretty abysmal. And Brashad Perriman has yet to play a single snap since he got drafted at UCF for the Ravens.
Yeah.
And he's not playing this week either.
Mm-hmm. Now we go from the NFL to the college game. There was a lot of action that took place in the Mid-American Conference earlier. Just last night, there was some action that took place in the ACC when Georgia Tech took on Virginia Tech. But the biggest games of the weekend are taking place in the Big 12. One of them is Oklahoma versus Baylor. Baylor has a chance to remain undefeated and keep their Big 12 championship and their playoff hopes alive. There's still a couple of other games to worry about as well.
You say about the Oklahoma game. They did lose to Texas for that one loss in the year. But Baker Mayfield has led the FBS with 5 games, which he's been responsible for at least 3 touchdowns without turning the ball over. That's pretty big. 33 TDs to 4 interceptions on the year. But their defense has given up fewer than 30 points in all but 1 game this year. That could be a big factor against Baylor. While Baylor, this team, they put up a season-low 31 points last week against Kansas. Very unusual for them. They got that quick strike offense that Oklahoma should be weary about against the air raid of Oklahoma. I'm going with an upset. I'm actually going with the Oklahoma Sooners to win this matchup.
Yeah, I like Oklahoma too. I think they've got, in spite of the fact that Baylor has just been so dynamic offensively, you still got to play some defense in this game. And Oklahoma might have about as much explosiveness offensively as any team in the country. I like Oklahoma in this one. And for the record, Virginia Tech won last night against Georgia Tech, so they're a 500 club, which means they still have a streak to keep alive. They've made a bowl game every single year since Frank Beamer became the coach. In 1987, he officially announced his retirement just a couple of weeks ago. They want to be able to send him off to another bowl game before he goes into retirement.
And that's going to be a big job for anybody to go for.
And by the way, what happened in the Mid-American Conference? Toledo beat Central Michigan, Ohio beat Kent, Northern Illinois beat Buffalo, and Bowling Green beat Western Michigan. And then there's a couple of games taking place tomorrow. Akron against Miami of Ohio, and UMass and Eastern Michigan, or as I like to call them, EMU.
But how about some of the top 10 games coming up this week? You got the Utah Utes going up against the Arizona Cardinals in Pac-12 action. You know, the fact that Utah has that slim one-game lead in the Pac-12 South over UCLA and USC. You know, Travis Wilson chipped in last week. He's had 6 rushing touchdowns, but in the loss to USC, he got picked up 4 times. And he's going up against an Arizona offense that is just playing for spoiler. Depleted without Scooby Wright this year. And it's unbelievable.
And they've also been torched, really, really torched defensively. They've given up 45 touchdowns during their 3-game losing streak.
They need one win just to be bowl eligible. And they're not getting it in this game.
No.
Utah has this. Now, the Miami Hurricanes, in the 2 wins with their interim head coach, Larry Scott, going up against the undefeated North Carolina Tar Heels, who are 5-0 in the Coastal Division.
Yeah, North Carolina has so much to play for this year. One more win and one more Pittsburgh loss gives Carolina the Coastal Division title. And how about the job that North Carolina has done this season?
Gene Chizik, their defensive coordinator, former head coach years ago with Auburn, could win the Broyles Award. That's given to the top defensive top assistant in the country. Their offense has been unbelievable, too. 704 yards they put up. High school record, 494 passing yards from Marquise Williams. Unbelievable.
Really helps when you have a 5th-year senior running the show for the Tar Heels.
Who do you go for in that matchup?
I'd be really careful in this game because Miami still has something to play for. Ever since they made the coaching change, they wound up getting a victory which, quite frankly, was unearned in the Duke game. But I think Miami's really turned the corner this year. Let's see exactly what Brad Kaya can do this time for an encore, because last year Carolina came away with a blowout victory of the Hurricanes. This time the scene is going to shift to Chapel Hill. So let's see exactly what Brad Kaya can do this time. See if he could get himself some revenge for last season.
And then we got the undefeated Ohio State Buckeyes at 9-0, over 20 consecutive victories. This time, of course, JT Barrett returns after the dumbest thing he could have done, operating a vehicle while intoxicated during the bye week, got suspended, didn't play last week. You had Cardell Jones. He did win. He's 11-0 as a starter, but when JT Barrett is able to play, he's going to be the starter because Urban Meyer feels he's probably the best chance for Ohio State to keep on winning, even though Cardell did a great job last year. Illinois, a team that had to lose its head coach at Tim Beckman at the beginning of the year, interim coach Bill Cubitt there. They got they steamrolled Purdue last week with 48 points.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, but
Too much Ezekiel Elliott, too much JT Barrett in this game. I like Ohio State. They're just better all around.
Oh, yeah. Ohio State. And then you got the Washington State Cougars and the UCLA Bruins in Pac-12 action. UCLA's won 3 in a row, and they're just a game behind for the South Division, behind Utah.
Yeah, don't count the Bruins out. They've got enough explosiveness offensively, especially at quarterback, to really make a game of it. I like UCLA in this one. They're just way better.
I know. Despite the fact Washington State is bowl eligible for the second time in 3 years, Luke Falk, 415 yards he averages, 33 touchdowns, but it doesn't matter. UCLA with Josh Rosen and the defense, they got this. Minnesota Golden Gophers coming off that loss last week against Ohio State. Now they got to play the Iowa Hawkeyes, another really tough team, for the Battle Floyd of Rosedale.
What about the coaching job that Kirk Ferentz has done? He's been a guy who's been in so much trouble in past years. This season, he's got his team undefeated at 9-0, they actually have a chance to take the West Division this year and play for the Big Ten title. If they can run the table, not just in this game, but in the last 2 games of the season, all signs point to an Ohio State versus Iowa Big Ten championship at Indy.
That's going to be probably great. And I think the running game has, even though they lost their running back for the year, zero, but I think they still are going to be able to do well on the ground. Their defense has certainly improved. Kirk Ferentz, he's been there, 17 years with the team.
Yeah.
I think this time things do change around for them. They win. Sorry, Tracy Clace, but congratulations. You're going to be the head coach.
And for the record, all Iowa has to do is win 1 game, and they take the West.
And how about the Battle of the American Athletic Conference? You got the Memphis Tigers, led by Paxton Lynch, coming off their first loss of the year against Navy, that snapped their 15-game winning streak, against the Houston Cougars, led by Greg Ward Jr., and first-year head coach Todd Herman.
Yep. Memphis and Houston, a pair of ranked teams. Memphis is 21st, Houston is 24th. You're going to be expecting a lot of scoring from the Houston Cougars. They really air out. They love using the passing attack traditionally, and this will be no exception. I actually like Houston in this one.
I am going opposite. I'm going Paxton Lynch and the Memphis Tigers. He's at 8 straight 300-yard games, making number 9. I think this time he'll correct the mistakes he had last week. How about the Arkansas Razorbacks going up, who have won in their last 3, won with 170 points scored, going up against the LSU Tigers, coming off a huge upset, 30-16 at the hands of Alabama.
Arkansas is a really, really tough team to figure out. They've already lost. They're 5-4 this season. That's first. They've lost games that they should have won, for example, Toledo, yet they've won games that they should have lost, Mississippi.
In overtime.
In overtime. This is easily a game that they're supposed to lose. So which Arkansas team is going to show up here?
The losing team, because I think this time, LSU cannot just be reliable on Leonard Fournette. I think we're going to see Jennings, or we're going to see Brandon Harris actually play better than he did last week. It was pathetic, 6 of 19 passes. Clean that up, my man, and don't always have to rely on Fournette. I'm going with LSU to win Death Valley.
Yep.
Oregon and Stanford. This has always been a traditional November matchup in the Pac-12, but Stanford is one of 2 teams to lose their first game of the year. They lost 16-6 Northwestern. Then they've gone on to win 8 straight games and now are in first in the North Division of the Pac-12. All they got to do is win this, win the rest, and they got a date with Utah for the Pac-12 title.
Yeah, so much to play for for the Cardinal this season, but do not count out Oregon. They've been a disappointment, but still, when you have an offense that's as explosive as the one Oregon has, you can never, ever count them out. Plus,
but their quarterback's out with a broken finger, Vernon Adams Jr. The guy's had 10 touchdown passes, 887 yards in the last 3 games. That's huge to lose a guy like that. Against Christian McCaffrey, one of the best all-purpose players who averages 242 all-purpose yards a game and a potential Heisman candidate.
This is where their running game comes in. Oregon has a 4-headed monster at running back, so let's see if they could use that running game to really pick things up for them this weekend. And for the record, I think Oregon wins this one. I think they spoiled the party up in NoCal.
Nah, I'm going with the Stanford Cardinal. Like I said, not just McCaffrey, but I think Kevin Hogan, who, by the way, congratulations, surpassing Andrew Luck's winningest record at Stanford. And now the Alabama Crimson Tide, Mississippi State Bulldogs, SEC. This is a big West Division matchup right here. That could be for some marbles for Alabama.
It's definitely for all the marbles here because the Western Division is on the line. And just like Alabama had a big win against LSU last time out, could this be a trap game? Big win against LSU last week, going up against the Mississippi State squad that's going to be looking for a little redemption. No, Alabama wins this one.
I know. Me too. Alabama, Derrick Henry is just having a crazy last 3 weeks. 589 yards, 7 touchdowns on the ground. Yeah, Alabama wins this. And by the way, my Gators won the East Division of the SEC.
They did.
Yep.
So it's going to be, this sets everything up for a Florida versus Alabama SEC title game in Atlanta.
December 5th. It's going to be fun. Jamie, as always, awesome working with you.
Great working with you, sir. Thank you so much.
And thank you, the audience, for watching our show. as you always have done since the beginning of September. We will see you here next week, Friday, November 20th, for yet another episode of your favorite NFL and college football program. For all the hardworking men and women at CTV, including Mr. Kenneth Graham, for my man, Jamie the Sportsman Hickson, I'm Eric Rosen. We'll see you next week here on CTV. Good night, everybody.